She was 9 years old, standing on a wooden crate to reach an industrial sink, her hands raw and blistered from scalding water and harsh chemicals. While children her age were learning multiplication tables, Sofia Martinez spent 14 hours a day washing dishes in the back kitchen of a bustling Los Angeles restaurant. Her only mistake was being born into the wrong family at the wrong time. And on one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a tech billionaire walked in for a simple lunch, noticed something he couldn't ignore, and uncovered a hidden world of exploitation that would change one girl's life forever. We tend to think of child labor as something from old photographs, black and white images from a century ago, or heartbreaking scenes from distant countries. We reassure ourselves that such things don't happen here, not in a country as wealthy as the United States. But the truth is far more disturbing. Child labor violations in the U.S. have risen by 69% in just 5 years. In 2023 alone, more than 5,700 children were found working illegally in dangerous conditions. These cases aren't happening in far-off places, they're happening in neighborhoods like ours, hidden behind the everyday businesses we visit. Sofia's journey didn't begin in Los Angeles. It began in a small village in Guatemala where violence had already taken the lives of her father and brother. Her mother, Maria, desperate to protect her remaining child, made an agonizing decision: to send Sofia north with a trusted cousin, hoping she would find safety and education in the United States. But once they crossed the border, that cousin revealed his true nature. He was not family at all, but a trafficker who saw an opportunity to profit. He sold Sofia to a restaurant manager in Los Angeles for $2,000. The Golden Dragon restaurant looked immaculate from the outside. It was adored by Yelp reviewers and food bloggers, with elegant white tablecloths and framed photos of the owner posing with local celebrities. But behind the kitchen doors was a different world. The heat was suffocating, the floors slick with grease, and in the very back stood the dish pit where Sofia worked 7 days a week. She prepared vegetables at sunrise, washed mountains of dishes through breakfast and lunch, and handled equipment far too heavy and dangerous for a child. She slept on a cot in a storage room upstairs. She wasn't paid, wasn't allowed outside, and had no contact with her mother. She was told that if she asked for help, the police would take her away forever. On a random Tuesday, Jonathan Pierce, a billionaire tech entrepreneur, came in for lunch. He had no plans beyond enjoying a plate of soup dumplings. But Jonathan was a man trained to notice details. Through the swinging kitchen doors, he caught glimpses of a small figure struggling with equipment meant for adults. At first, he tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was a relative helping out. Maybe he was mistaken. But something felt wrong. He asked his server casually whether the child was the owner's daughter. The server froze before giving a non-answer. And Jonathan knew that. He stood up, walked straight into the kitchen, and saw Sofia clearly for the first time, small, exhausted, trembling over boiling water. When he asked how old she was, the manager, Wei, tried to force him out and threatened to call the police. Jonathan pulled out his phone and said calmly, "Let's call them together." That moment broke the silence. Workers who had been too afraid to speak finally stepped forward. Some admitted they feared deportation. Others feared losing their jobs. And within minutes, police, social workers, and labor investigators flooded the restaurant. Sofia, terrified and conditioned to fear anyone in authority, refused to speak until a Spanish-speaking social worker named Rosa knelt beside her and gently gained her trust. What investigators uncovered was horrifying. The man who brought Sofia to the U.S. was not family. Wei had knowingly paid for her labor. And the restaurant owner, once celebrated in local magazines, had turned a blind eye to everything happening under his roof. But Sofia's nightmare was only one of many. That single investigation led to the discovery of 17 other trafficked children working illegally in Los Angeles kitchens. Jonathan could have walked away after making the call. He had done enough. But something inside him refused to leave Sofia to a broken system. When he asked Rosa what would happen to her, she explained the bleak reality: foster care placements, months or years of instability, bureaucratic complications due to her undocumented status, and no guarantee of ever reuniting with her mother. Jonathan made a decision that surprised even him. He applied to become her legal sponsor, taking responsibility for her care while the government worked to find her mother. Sofia's transition into Jonathan's world was not easy. She hoarded food, woke up automatically at 5 a.m., and barely spoke. Jonathan, who lived in a minimalist penthouse and was used to solving problems with strategic planning, had to learn patience. Healing couldn't be rushed. The breakthrough came on a quiet morning when Sofia wandered out onto the balcony where sparrows were perched on the railing. Jonathan gently offered her birdseed. She took it silently. And slowly, over the following days, feeding birds became their peaceful ritual, her first step toward reclaiming her childhood. Meanwhile, Jonathan's legal team tracked down Sofia's mother in Guatemala. When they finally reached her by phone, Maria sobbed with relief. But bringing her to the U.S. legally was complicated. To make it possible, Jonathan hired Maria as a remote employee for his company, giving her the legal grounds for a work visa. When she finally arrived at the airport, Sofia ran into her arms with a joy that no words could convey. As Sofia's story spread, the restaurant industry faced a reckoning. The Golden Dragon shut down permanently. Wei and the trafficker were arrested. Jonathan publicly advocated for stronger enforcement of labor laws and funded a non-profit dedicated to rescuing trafficked child laborers. Maria began speaking publicly about the impossible choices parents face in countries plagued by poverty and violence. Rosa used Sofia's case to push for improved coordination between labor investigators and child welfare agencies. Today, Sofia is 11. She attends a bilingual school, loves math and art, and continues therapy to heal from her trauma. Though she still has nightmares, she now draws pictures of birds, families, and a hopeful future, images that once felt impossible. Maria works full-time and is on her way to citizenship. Jonathan remains an important figure in their lives, a mentor, a protector, someone who chose compassion over convenience. Sofia's story reminds us that child labor trafficking is not an issue from the past or from distant nations. It is happening right here, hidden behind ordinary doors in ordinary cities. Thousands of children remain unseen. And the difference between a child who remains invisible and a child who is rescued may come down to whether someone chooses to notice, chooses to care, and chooses to act. If Sofia's story opened your eyes, consider sharing it. Awareness is the first step toward change. And ask yourself this: if you ever witnessed a child in danger or exploitation, what would you do? Because the answer could someday mean everything to a child waiting, right now, for someone to finally see them.